Welcome to season 6, episode 2 of the podcast. And in this episode, we're going to talk all about digestion. And not just your high school version of digestion. We're going to go more into the sort of how the nervous system affects it, how the endocrine system affects it, and how digestion is a pretty complex process. And it's more than just your biology, it's your psychology, it's your environment, it's your culture. There is a lot that goes into it. And then from that, we're going to look at energy balance, because digestion does play a huge role in that. And then at the end, we're going to touch on diuretics. So Andy is still in Dublin, and hope your prep is going well there. It looks like it's getting pretty gnarly at this stage with your
I'm at that stage where I'm far enough out to feel like I'm behind though. It's like 6 weeks. You're like, 6 weeks doesn't sound like a long time. Is it a long time? I'll be fine. It's just this is sort of stage where your mind games start playing tricks on you. So I'm leaving it. I'll leave it to Ollie and just tick the boxes. It's not my problem. If I'm not ready, I will be ready. But
you will. You look good. I mean, from what you posted on,
you have 6 weeks to go.
Yeah, really good.
How many weeks? 6.
No, face is disappearing. So
yeah.
6,
cheek.
Time for those fillers, Andy. Time for some face fillers.
6 weeks in prep condition is like 3 days. So you'll be there in no time.
Yeah, I'll be all right. But
how is your digestion? Because that must be
rubbish. Well, rubbish for me. I've normally got really good digestion and really good bowel movements. I'm now at that point where it's all slowed down. I normally wake up, we have a bowel movement in the morning, one in the afternoon and one in the evening when I'm eating earlier, because I have quite a lot of fiber. And morning, which is annoying because it affects my scale weight for check-ins. Because I like to be, because it's a long time to have stored food. But no, I'm okay. But it's to be expected to prep. It always slows down. I'm keeping, I'm using my carbs for fibrous carbohydrates rather than, than everything else. So my fiber is high, so I'm okay. I'm still digesting, just probably less than optimal.
Yeah, I think people underestimate digestion a lot and how important it is, not just for your health, but for your mood as well. And what goes on when you are in a calorie deficit, that slows down your digestion. So it's fascinating. And so I guess we can just start with, hopefully everyone knows what digestion is, and how it's controlled by the nervous system. The nervous system is sort of the master controller of digestion, and this falls under the branch of your autonomic nervous system. That's sort of beyond your conscious control. And we've talked about it before, but you've got two branches of that. You've got your sympathetic nervous system, your SNS, and your parasympathetic nervous system, PNS, just for abbreviations. And these really play a huge role in your digestion. And so the SNS, the sympathetic nervous system, is your flight or flight. If you are stressed or if you're in danger, real or imaginary, and that's where the problem comes in.
That's the thing.
And then we have the parasympathetic, which is your rest, digest, and repair. And so, like I said, the nervous system is the master controller of that, but it works hand in hand with your endocrine system, which is like a chemical messenger system. That's how I think I would describe that. And we have discussed before how important it is for digestion to occur efficiently and effectively for you to be in the parasympathetic state. And in this day and age of hustle is life, we are often in a sympathetic state. And that's when we are stressed. And, you know, stress when we were evolving was very different to it is now. And our body cannot tell the difference if you are battling in Nairobi traffic, if you are answering emails from your boss, or if you are actually in physical danger. Your body cannot tell.
Well, that's the same as traffic in Nairobi. That's physical danger.
Well, true.
But no, realistically, yeah, our body doesn't care. Yeah, stress response is the same whether, actually. And, this is what also, like, people who do video games, when we get so entrenched in a video game, that stress is real because your body doesn't realize it's just a game. Like your stress levels don't really, you're in that game, you're feeling that game. And people forget this, like all these little outside influences just merge in. This modern day society sort of just merges into sort of melting pot.
Yeah, because stress is stress. I think with that, it's the same as the way your body doesn't know your goals, like whether you're trying to lose fat, build muscle, is almost the same as stress response. It's breakdown, repair, and the process is the same, whether you're doing it for sport, whether you're after surgery, it's the same sort of stress response. And your body just does what it needs to do to survive.
It does. And people forget exercise is stress.
Yeah.
Low energy, low intake, dieting is stress. And so this tends to shut down our digestion and our appetite. We release some hormones like norepinephrine, and that's just saying to your body, look, we don't have energy for digestion right now. We need all our energy to escape or be ready to escape whatever this stress is. So, you'll probably find when you are stressed, normally your digestion is, you get nausea or butterflies, or you generally don't feel hungry. Some people are the opposite and they stress eat, but if it's, I would say, chronic long-term stress, then you probably don't, or it depends on like how stressed you are, if you over or under eat. But generally you don't have much of an appetite because your body, your nervous system and your endocrine system are just saying, look, digestion is not a priority right now. And when you wake up in the morning, you've got 5 minutes to eat your breakfast and then you're whirling out the door. That to your body is a stressful situation, and digestion is not going to be optimal.
No, and I used to get this after, especially playing rugby. I would be hungry for hours after rugby. I'd always try and eat because I did need to get back some sort of nourishment into the body, but I could sit there and happily not eat. I mean, this is a problem, like people skipping meals. And this is a big thing. I've seen a lot with clients, a lot with even myself, especially, in my previous life would be, you're working on operation, stressful, and then you're just not hungry, for hours or even the same day, you're probably not hungry for the next day. It's not until your body calms down. So like people with stressful working conditions find it really easy to skip meals. Oh yeah, I was so busy at work. Yeah, busy at work, but you've got to find that time to sort of chill out. And I always say to people, if you can, whatever you do, don't eat your food at your desk or where you work. Get out of the office if you can. If you can go outside, brilliant, but just change your environment, sit down, take 10 minutes just to get some breaths in and relax and enjoy your environment you're now in. Many, because your body doesn't want to eat when it's stressed. It wants you to survive. And eating, we can do without food for quite a long period of time. The human body can do without food for quite a number of days.
Yeah.
So everybody knows this. So the body's like, let's escape the danger. And at some point you can eat.
Yeah, no, being in that parasympathetic state, because digestion is a complicated process where certain, hormones are released at certain stages, and then it's like a cascade effect. So, I mean, digestion starts from you just smelling your food. So a lot of people, some of my clients have had COVID, you can't taste or smell, and they're like, I just cannot eat. And you just have no appetite, smelling your food, and that is the first, signal to your brain, like, it's time to eat.
Yeah.
And I did a post recently on like eating slowly. I'm still working on that, but eating slowly and mindfully is a huge one. And it just because digestion starts in the mouth with some enzymes being released there, and sort of telling the rest of your body, be like, hey, food is coming, get ready. Whereas if you're wolfing it down, your body kind of can't catch up with that.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge impact on your satiety. You need time for what's going on in your GI tract to kind of tell your brain, which is controlling, your hypothalamus is controlling everything, like, are you hungry? Do we have enough energy here?
Mm-hmm.
So eating slowly really lets, those signals, your brain and your gut to be like, yeah, okay, we're on the same page here. Because, if you wolf food down, you find like, oh, I'm still hungry.
I find
chewing's important.
Yeah.
This is another thing, chewing, for the same reason about mastication, saliva, vagus nerve triggers from eating, sitting there at your meal. If you don't chew your food properly, your digestion's got to do a lot more with it, but also you're not producing the enzymes. So that's why people who have a lot of shakes, a lot of protein shakes, or blend their food for speed, they actually end up with quite bad digestive issues. It's okay, I always say it's okay to people to have a shake in between meals, but a shake, like take Slim Fast shakes. Back in the day, everyone was on Slim Fast. It's just a few shakes a day, and then a normal meal. I think it's a shake for breakfast, shake for lunch, and dinner. People end up with terrible digestion because there's nothing to digest. There's no enzymes being produced. That's just sloshing around in your stomach. So you need to have that mastication to trigger the enzymes. You need to have that vagus nerve stimulation.
Yeah, because I remember clients before who'd come and they've been on juicing or shaker diets, where you're doing juice, I guess 3-4 meals, and then you're eating one. And the moment you try switch back to, I'd say, normal eating, for your health, your performance, your life, the first, I'd say even few weeks, weeks, it's like it can't digest, and they either get bloated, they don't. It's
exactly.
Like just taking the food down is such a problem, both mentally and
then we think then, the juice must have been better because I wasn't getting bloated.
Yeah,
and that's the problem. And
that's what caused the problem.
What it is that it's sold as give your digestion a rest, but your digestion doesn't need a rest.
Oh my
God! It's there to do a job. It doesn't need a rest. It just needs you to be more mindful about what you're doing.
It's I bought into that. I'm like, yeah, it's good to give your digestion a rest and have, like these soothing, cleansing drinks. But it's like
green drinks, as they call them.
No, if you actually just chewed your food properly, you'll be good.
I think we as humans, it's easy to sell some of these things because I sit and come and coin good terms like digestive rest, gut reset, and I just tell you, have your kale with celery and throw in your fruits and make it, because everyone is struggling, and like we say, digestion is a big part of the journey. And if it's part of the struggle, it's easy for someone to make certain things seem nice and cool for you to think, okay, yeah, I've been struggling with my weight. Maybe I need a digestion rest to restart my digestive. And
it's not a car. You don't need to jump start it.
It's sad that people are desperate for ways to progress and really get healthier, and people just take advantage of that with I guess juicing diets and resetting our digestive system and all the interesting stuff on social media.
Well, that's the thing, but it's eating is important, chewing is important. It's all very well, people looking for these shortcuts, and everyone wants to feel better, and we all sort of fall into that. But as a saying, you are what you eat, digest, absorb, and don't secrete, because it's not just what goes in your mouth. Without this digestion, working optimally, you're just wasting a lot of calories. You're not getting your nutrients out of your food. You are going to create digestive issues. And there's people, a juice cleanse always sounds great to people. Oh, that sounds really easy. Juices are pretty sweet because they've had all the fiber removed. Delicious, easy to do. You can just sit at your desk and drink a bottle of juice, lovely.
Yeah.
And crack on. But there is this constant you need to be in that parasympathetic you need to be in the parasympathetic stage. You need to be in rest and digest. You need to take time. And this is what people forget. It's not just about what you eat, it's about the environment you're eating in, because a big part of that rest and digest, it's a rest element.
Mm-hmm.
You're not meant to eat food on the go. You're not meant to, when humans are eating, they're meant to be resting. Eat and rest. And if I had the opportunity, I would eat and nap all the time. I'd love it. It'd be great. If I didn't have work to do, I'd love to just eat, have a little nap, because then your digestion's going to be, optimal. That sort of situation.
Big time. And I mean, there's lots of different hormones that affect your appetite and your satiety. So we'll just go, I think, through the main characters. So one of the big ones, and you might have heard of this, is Ghrelin. It's a hunger hormone that it acts directly on your brain, and it's affected by sort of how much you've eaten, and if your energy intake is low, then Ghrelin will go up, and that's what's kind of telling you, okay, time to eat now. And then we have the other one, which is called leptin, and that's mainly made by your fat cells. So the more fat cells you have, the more leptin you have. And this tells your brain that there's plenty of energy in the body. We don't need any more, but you can move more. And then on the flip side of that, if you are in a diet, if you've got low body fat, you've got less fat cells, so you're going to secrete less leptin. So now that's telling your body, okay, now we need to eat more, move less. And your sympathetic nervous system can suppress leptin. So again, stress is not a good thing. It can suppress leptin, which can make you feel hungry. Even if you have more body fat than you want, you can still feel really hungry.
Yeah. And it rebounds hard. Once it's sort of suppression, it gets so suppressed, you just get so hungry. And that's why people become stress eaters. If we feel stressful and hungry, I can easily be a stress eater. If I allow myself. When I'm stressed, I'd love to just smash a lot of sweet stuff like chocolate or something. But that's the same thing, you know, that leptin just gets crushed and ghrelin gets pushed, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy, because that's where you can see the hormonal differences, because I'm now the opposite. If I'm super stressed, my appetite is like, I'm good not eating. And you find there's guys who, if you're stressed,
But there's also a lot of psychological factors with stress
Big
eating
time.
as well, like, because is it a coping mechanism as
The
well?
reward.
You know,
Yes,
is it
I seldom stress eat a big, healthy, nourishing meal.
Yeah.
It's like it goes back to the psychology of when we're young, rewarding ourselves with something sweet, like, you know, when kids get good grades, getting ice cream or whatever. So when you're stressed, you want to give yourself a little reward for surviving. You know?
We've evolved that way as well. Like, we've evolved to, you know, look for that sort of highly palatable, yummy food, and it's a reward. But, you know, a lot of people ask, like, oh, then why do obese people overeat? You know, because if you've got so much body fat, surely you should have so much leptin that should tell your body that, you know, you don't need to eat anymore. But you can get leptin resistance. That's what happens when you are obese. It kind of overrides that natural mechanism in your body. And you know, these are mechanisms for hunger and satiety, you know, and being at a certain body fat, you know, are pretty robust, you know, if we listen to it. But because of the environment we live in now, which is just abundance everywhere, access to highly palatable, calorie-dense food everywhere, you know, it can override our sort of natural systems and checks and things like that.
Yeah, our hormones are based on homeostasis.
Yeah.
And us being in a nice, healthy, normal environment. As soon as, you know, because we're not meant to have the amount of food we have, like, in the environment. We're not meant to, you know, our bodies haven't changed much. You know, evolution is quite a long process. So, you know, our bodies are still built the same way almost. And now, you know, we're not, you know, it wouldn't have been, you know, hundreds of years ago even, been obese people, because there just wasn't the food. You had to go out and hunt, or you had to go out, and there was little meat. There was a little, you know, there wasn't chocolate bars. There wasn't, you know, high fat, high carb meals. You know, so you wouldn't have had the same, you know, sort of massive amount of difference between someone who's just a little overweight because they've not been moving much, which is kind of what leptin's set up for, to someone who is morbidly obese. You just didn't have it.
It's interesting. Sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but in university I did human sciences, and there's a lot of anthropology in there and human evolution. And if you go way, way back, you know, there are figurines of like obese people, mainly women, and they were almost like gods, because, you know, that showed the ultimate abundance. You as a society were, you know, on top. If you could have someone so fat, you were so successful. And that's seen in a lot of African culture as well, how, you know, that is a big success, because in the day that was so difficult. You had to have like a very good system in place to support someone who's so fat, who can't go out and, you know, get food for themselves. So, you know, it's actually, it's fascinating. And I mean, it's still part of a lot of cultures today, but now that doesn't work so well. You know, to see that sort of excess body fat, you know, as you know, success, because there are so many health risks associated with that now.
Yeah, true.
But it's just so interesting.
No, it's very true, because even growing up, I mean, all politicians were, you know, slightly fatter and chubbier than most people, and you'd hear the saying, if you translate it, it's like, you know, the kitambi is the gut, And it's like, oh,
Doing well.
yeah, he's eating well. You know, he went in when he was my size. Now look at him. So it's well, sadly that
Politicians eat well.
yeah.
But it's also it's like a compliment.
It
like,
is, yeah.
Here, like if someone hasn't seen you for a long time, they're like, oh, Menona. Like, oh, you're looking, nice and chunky. And you're like, you come from overseas, you're like, oh, what? That's not very nice. Whereas that's such a compliment. Anyway, back to the topic. I think sex hormones also play a big role in digestion, and our GI tract has a lot of receptors for hormones. So I think especially for women, that makes sense. If you look at your cycle and you look at your digestion throughout your cycle, how it changes because you have those hormone receptors in your GI tract. So for a lot of women, either just before their period or during their period, they might have diarrhea because they're different, different hormones are now affecting your digestive process. I don't know about men. I did read somewhere that testosterone is somehow related to ghrelin as well. I don't know. That, it increases if you have, ghrelin increases if you have high test.
Yeah, imagine that link is pretty much sounds about right, because you'd want to be, if you got high test, you want to be feeding your body.
Yeah.
Because your body wants to grow.
Yeah.
You want to be more powerful, you want to be stronger, so that needs calories to do that.
And
I guess that's a bit of the difference between when it comes to some sports athletes performing better, because it's like with the Olympics and the testosterone issue, but it could be because you're eating mounds of food and still able to maintain and build muscle and perform better than your competitors. So it could be,
And I mean, the other end of your digestion is important too. Your excretion.
Yes.
Very what comes out and how it comes out is very important. And that's an important part of, like, by checking with clients, it's like, how are your bowel movements? And everyone's like, oh, TMI. Like, it's not TMI. Like, as your coach, as you as a person, you kind of need to know, it's so important to have happy, healthy bowel movements, because if you're constipated, you're generally miserable. And a lot of, again, for women, a lot of estrogen is bound up in the fiber in your poo, and it needs to be excreted. Otherwise, you can kind of get a buildup, and that can cause imbalances in your hormones. So it's really important to have good bowel movements. If you've seen the Bristol stool chart, you should be aiming for a number 4, which is smooth like a snake.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, well, it's a bit of a tangent, but it'd be interesting to do like a hormone equation, because it seems every topic we talk about, hormones are big, like how when this goes up, this goes down, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing. The human body is essentially
nerves and
hormones.
It's
hormones affect function.
Huge. And I mean, we've talked about the nervous system, but your GI tract has its own nervous system called the enteric nervous system. It's like a localized nervous system, and it talks with your central nervous system. You are not aware of this, and it lets they discuss quote unquote with each other, like what's going on, including your psychological state. That's why everyone says go with your gut feeling, because it is a thing, or your second brain, as a lot of people call it. That's why I guess gut health is so trendy as well, and people are so obsessed with cleanses and all of this, because if your digestion is off, you just feel like crap. You really do. Like, you just cannot, perform, feel good. It's, and that's because your GI tract is talking to your brain. So you need it to be optimal, for you to feel and perform your best.
The engine room, we see all this you know what it's like if you get some dirty fuel in your car, it blocks up your fuel pump and everything else. It doesn't matter what we see, the onboard computer's thinking. It's trying to fire more fuel into the system. It doesn't matter if a fuel tank is ruined. You got to take it out and clean it. And that's the same with the stomach in a lot of ways. What we put into it is controlled by the brain, but actually it's almost more important for day-to-day running of us. If we look at ourselves as machines, our day-to-day running, we need the fuel to be running. And we talk about this when we talk about macros, having the right amount of macros. And then you got to talk about actually the process of turning those macros into things, which is then digestion. And that process is important. And as you said, and it links all back up to the brain links back down, and and the heart's connected, because when we eat, heart rate increases, and and then also if we've been exercising, the heart rate's up, and then that's a stressor, digestion. And all these things are just interconnected, and that's why we've got to look at the body holistically. You can't just say, right, I'm going to do a juice cleanse. I'm going to focus just on the gut. It doesn't work. That doesn't work. You got to look at everything. What's stressing you? What's causing this issue? Have you got a hormone imbalance? Is that why you've got diarrhea all the time?
It's true. It's amazing how people will try to do the craziest things to almost prove a point to themselves, and forgetting as they do it, they're super miserable. Like the example you've given of, I'd say, the juice cleanse, where by day 3 you're done, you're tired, but you sort of want to prove a point to your friends, and you're like, I started it, I loved it, it's amazing, I dropped 3 kilos or whatever, but you're
missing weight drop.
You're not at work, you're just not in it, your tummy is just feeling off, but it's
and
I mean, that's a great indicator for health, general health.
It is. And so there's a few like neurotransmitters as well, and so you've got neurotransmitters in your brain and in your gut. And like Andy, you've said before on multiple podcasts, like 90% of the serotonin, which is our happy hormone, is made and used in the gut, for smooth muscle contractions and sensations. It can't cross the blood-brain barrier. But it just shows that's so it's such an important part of it. And there's also one called GABA. I don't know what that, I can't remember its full name, but GABA.
But GABA.
So in the brain, it inhibits the sympathetic nervous system, which is good for the gut, because when you're chilled, you rest and digest. And then, like we discussed before, you've got norepinephrine, which is also a neurotransmitter, which is the opposite to GABA. So that's now causing your body to be in a sympathetic state. So there's just it's so complex, and there's so many feedback loops with all of this that like we've said, you have to take it sort of holistically.
And I think we're gonna get on in a second to the actual how that affects energy balance. And you can start seeing the pattern of like, if you're not digesting, you're not going to be getting correct sort of energy out of your food. And something I always say to all my clients is actually never eat directly after training. I think I've said this on podcasts. So I'm not, you shouldn't eat, and this is why and I tell people don't immediately after you finish training. Heart rate's increased. You wait for your heart rate, get back down to your resting heart rate before eating, because you need to be in rest and digest. And what happens is as you eat, your heart rate goes up anyway, and that's a natural occurrence. What you don't want to do is start trying to cram food in when the heart rate's up, because your body thinks it's stressed. your body thinks it's, we've said exercise is a stressor, and it is, especially hard training. What you want to do is bring it down, don't rush, try to cram a meal in the changing room of the gym, even in the off season, give yourself a short while, everything relax, eat your food in a nice, relaxed environment.
Big time. I've had a couple of clients the past few weeks who've just been really stressed, and that can cause IBS-like symptoms, and a lot of people who think they have IBS, and maybe they do, but it's just stress or chronic stress, but no.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is IBS, but it's triggered by stress.
Yeah, not your food. So
yeah,
it is hard to control your stress, but I think so many people are looking to the food. They're like, oh, what did I eat that caused this? And it's like, just look at the rest of your life. You are super stressed right now, and it's when that light bulb goes off, they're like, oh yes, that makes sense. You've got diarrhea, you just can't eat, or you're feeling nauseous, and that's stress on your body. That's just what we've been talking about. You're in a chronic sympathetic state. Your cortisol is up, your all those what we've talked about are just telling your body you're in survival mode. Digestion is not a priority right now. So always
people with anxiety or depression have gut issues generally, and people who suffer from chronic anxiety usually suffer from IBS, but the IBS isn't triggered by the food, it's triggered by the anxiety and the constant stress, and you telling the internal communication that you are in fight and flight over the everyday. And then depression's is due to the lack of serotonin. You don't have a smooth muscle contraction in your stomach, you have no gut motility, so you have either two things happen: constipation or diarrhea, depending on what your cortisol levels are doing. But so both of those things massively affect digestion.
And it doesn't have to be sort of huge stress as well. To take myself as an example. Yeah. So we got our new dog. And my digestion has not been the best since he came, and it's just a stress of how just fitting him in, with all the other dogs, and they were just not all getting on, and then I've also had a deload this week, and my digestion has been better this week, and my weight has gone down by 1 kilo, and it just shows how important being in a relaxed state can be on your body, because when you are stressed, you're holding on to more water, digestion is not good. So for a lot of people who are in a weight loss phase and don't see movement on the scale, you've got to look at all these things, and just seeing how stress, impacts that, and being aware of it.
One of the best things you can do as a coach, if a client says to you, I am really stressed at work, chronic stress, is actually give them a deload. To take away another stressor. You don't, adding more training volume, or saying, oh, you got to get your training in, go get your steps in, it's just adding more stress to the parcel. Let's just actually, what can we unload a little bit of? Yes, you love training, still keep training, but let's not go crazy to add stress to your body. Let's your body just deal with your actual stress of work for the week, especially if it's something like a big, an audit or a big report going in. It's just one thing. It's good, it's gonna be a week, 2 weeks. After that, get back to it, and thank you for it.
Big time. I mean, that takes us nicely into, I think, energy balance. So energy balance is a fundamental law of thermodynamics. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's only transferred. And you might have heard of CICO, which is calories in versus calories out. So if you have more calories coming in than are going out, you gain weight. If calories coming in are the same as going out, you maintain your weight. And if calories coming in are less than going out, you lose weight. And, on the surface of it, CICO seems so simple, But when you get into it, which is why we're talking about digestion first, it's actually very complicated. And so factors that affect energy in digestion is a huge one. It's a huge one. The types of food we eat, how they're prepared, how efficiently, how effectively are you absorbing all the nutrients from your food? What are your hormones doing? What are your stress levels doing? Are you sleeping? Are you recovering? What's your psychology like, your mindset? Because all of that is going to affect how you digest and metabolize your food. And so we've touched on the digestion. If your digestion is not optimal, you're not going to be getting as much out of your food, as you could. If you're stressed, that might make you eat more, or it might make you eat less. And there's the psychology of it. Some people, our internet says it's unstable, fingers crossed. There's psychology of eating and overeating. They found a lot of genes that are linked to obesity, and that how those genes can be affected by so much as you're growing up. If you were starving when you were a child, that can affect your eating patterns when you get older. Even our microbiome is an interesting one, because they found, so the microbiome is like all the organisms sort of in your GI tract, and that's generally what people refer to with your gut health and like probiotics and everything. Your gut microbiome is really important, and there are studies showing obese people have a different gut microbiome than non-obese people. And if you do a fecal transplant, that's taking the poo from an obese person and putting it into someone who's not, they can actually get obese. The point of fecal transplants is that they can really help people with like Crohn's disease, or IBS, pretty serious colon or intestinal problems. But I just thought that was really interesting. So your gut microbiome can affect that as well. But sleep is a massive one. If you remember our podcast with Dr. Dean, and your circadian rhythms and night shift workers, because lack of sleep can really impact your hormone levels. Hormones again, and and your sort of blood glucose as well. So when you have lack of sleep, you're generally hungrier, you have more ghrelin. Big time. You probably noticed that. If you've had a bad night's sleep, you're often hungrier.
So true.
Or you make poorer food choices. You go for more highly palatable, calorie dense kind of food, and then that also has a sort of socio-cultural part as well, because again, if you're sort of a night shift worker, or if you've been out clubbing, what kind of food is open at that time of night? Fast food,
fatty, greasy, foods.
That is true. It's just kind of what you get used to. There's very little healthy options open past 9 p.m.
Because you've been drinking, and then you add on, the super fatty, super greasy foods to help with the hangover the next day. So
no juice bars open at midnight.
Nope. Because as they say, vitamin C is affected, when you drink, and that's why you get that bad habit. If you could get some spinach juice or orange after your night of drinking, it would probably do you.
I'd vomit all over your bedroom.
Stop.
It would definitely be better than your. I remember we used to, because Pizza Inn used to be the only place like would be open at about 3-4 a.m. in the morning when back.
2-4-hour pizza Inns.
Yeah. And you just
terrible pizza.
Oh yeah.
But I used to love, I would always drink and get pizza because I get the biggest one I could get, knowing
Yep.
that if I start getting tired, I could fall asleep, it'd still be there in the morning, I could still eat it.
Yeah.
Unlike some other takeaways, don't taste so good. Like tried to eat the kebab the next morning, it was never quite as good. Because you do wake up and you feel starving, hungry, you feel empty.
Yeah.
That Ghrelin, because Ghrelin's spiking, and you feel like, oh, I'm so hungry. And that's why, in the UK, you go out to a greasy cafe and get a fry up after a night of drinking because you wake up with that hunger.
So you can see like factors affecting energy in their biological, their social, cultural, psychological. So it's very complex. And the same with energy out. So that's your basal metabolic rate. So the amount of energy your body needs just to stay alive. Some people also call it your resting metabolic rate, which also includes digestion. And I mean, that can account for around 70% of your daily energy needs. Your brain needs a lot of food, a lot of glucose. And then you've got what's called the thermic effect of food, like different foods take more energy to digest. So protein has the highest thermic effect. So, if you do eat a lot of meat, sometimes people get like meat sweats.
True.
It's hard work for your body to break down meat. And that's where protein is often, we use it as a tool in a deficit because it's a small percentage, but it will increase your calories outside of the equation. Plus, it's a satiety effect. So then we've got thermogenesis, which is sort of heat given off by your body. And this differs from person to person. And some people are very thermogenic. And you're wasting a lot of energy as heat. So for those people, like your boyfriend who just eats whatever he wants and doesn't gain weight, it's because he's very inefficient at metabolizing food. And a lot of
I was like that growing up. I would always be hot. Anyone who like in a bed with me would say, "Why are you so hot when you sleep?" It's just because I never put weight on, and I was just like have this stupid internal body. I feel like I've cooled down a little bit. I need to cover myself now as I sleep. But like when I was younger, I wouldn't have a duvet on me. I wouldn't have sheets on me.
Leon's like that. He's like my hot water bottle. And like, honestly, if you look at that, everyone knows that one person who just eats the bottomless pit and never puts on weight. And if you watch them, they never sit down. They're always moving. They're generally, like say, like a hot kind of person. And you can like give off an, I think in my nutritional course I'm doing, they said like an excess of 700 calories heat. Everyone is different. And we'll get back to homeostasis in a minute. But then we can look at NEAT, which we talk about a lot, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, that word again. And that's your sort of unconscious movement throughout the day of fidgeting, like playing with your glasses, just doing the washing up. We use steps as an artificial form of NEAT, but NEAT again varies from person to person and is quite tightly controlled by some of your neurotransmitters and hormones as well. So again, leptin is very important there because when your body senses that leptin is high, so a higher body fat, higher energy intake, it's like, okay, well, we've got the resources to move around more. Whereas if you're in a deficit and you're losing body fat, now your body's like, oh, leptin's low. Okay, we're going to tell you not to move around so much. That is why in a deficit, you want to be a couch potato.
Yeah.
And why we use step targets as, to keep you moving. Because otherwise your body would be like, nah, we need to preserve this energy.
You got to be mindful of movement. This is like in prep at the moment with me. Yeah, it'd be lovely just nap all day, wouldn't it? But you've got. I tell myself to get up and move. I make things harder. Like I'll rather walk somewhere than get, in Dublin and get the tram or bus.
Yeah.
Because it's all part of keeping myself moving. Because otherwise, it's easy just to get lazy. And that's the same with everyday people. It's like, oh, no, I'm in a deficit, so I'm just going to sit down more. I don't need to move more because I'm in a deficit. Well, no, you need to be moving the same as you were before for that deficit to work.
Big time. And I mean, so that's neat. But then you have like your purposeful exercise, your training session, your cardio, and depending on a lot of factors that will contribute. I mean, it's not a huge amount to your, your total daily output. It can be maybe 15%, 30% for some people if you're really active. Excretion is important for the calories outside of the equation. And your hormones, as always, your hormones are there. Have I missed anybody? I mean, no. Sleep, recovery, always. Stress is there too. If you're recovering from an illness or injury, that can affect the calories outside as well. And it's interesting when, we look at what we've said before, what Andy said, like your body wants to be at homeostasis. A lot of sort of systems will kick into place when you start to lose body fat, because from an evolutionary perspective, our body has so many defense mechanisms to stop us losing body fat, which has let us get to where we are now to survive. Yeah. Now everything has changed.
And that's the thing, and everyone's got a different set point. It's impossible to say where everyone's homeostasis is, how much body fat they should have for their body. I think the longer you spend in a different state, that set point moves. So if you spend a lot of time lean, your set point moves towards a leaner side and your body gets used to it. Or the same the other way. And that's why it's harder for people who've been obese for so long. They can lose a big portion of weight initially, but then suddenly the body feels like it's moved quite far away to what it's got used to.
Yeah, and your RMR, that resting metabolic rate, it goes up and down. It's very adaptive. So if you're in a deficit, all these things will kick into place, like to stop you moving around. Your thyroid hormone is going to go down. Cortisol is going to come up. There's so many factors here. Like when your lean body mass and your total body mass goes down, you're naturally not going to need as much energy or expend as much energy.
It's like your body goes into survival mode.
It does, and that's when you get metabolic and hormonal adaptations. And I mean, Taryn, who was on the podcast before, talks a lot about this, how chronic dieting, you just cannot diet forever because your body will adapt to it, and you'll have issues.
Yeah, you really can't, to be honest, if you think about it. Every person who has tried, I'm sure we've all had clients who've been chronic dieters, and there's always that point things just seem to crumble and there's no progress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I see like weight fat movement like a staircase. Right? You can't, it's not a slope.
No.
Then it's going to lead to hurting yourself. But like you've got to spend a little time at each point.
Each step, yeah.
Be able to go to the next point. You can't just bound up, it's got to come down, spend a little time here, come down again, spend a little time here. And that's when you get your best results. And that's why people need to realize it's not a short-term body fat loss. It's not a short-term plan.
True.
Because it takes a little bit. The same with muscle gaining, being tissue gaining. It takes a lot of work because you are moving away from your homeostasis and you've got to keep moving that set point along, even direction.
I think a lot of people would succeed if that statement Andy has said, if you just realize it's like this, let's just call it becomes a lifestyle, it's long-term. If everyone could just get that into their heads, I think a lot of people would embrace, just the information and not look for quick fixes and be better place mentally and physically.
But you've seen how complicated the
That's the
system
thing.
is. Like, it's like, yes, CICO is important, and it's always true. If you are not losing weight, you're not in a calorie deficit. But the reason you're not in a calorie deficit can be more complicated than you think.
Yeah.
It could be hormonal, it could be stress. It could be, oh, I didn't realize I'd stopped moving around. I didn't know that, my body had put all these mechanisms into place to kind of stop me doing that. And it's, or people say that a metabolism is broken, and it's like, it's not broken, it's just down-regulated. It has adapted. Your body is so smart. And hormones are a massive one. They're a massive one. And I mean, especially for women, we are so sensitive to changes in energy balance, because we cannot reproduce. We cannot, safely grow a baby if we do not have enough energy. So if you are in a chronic deficit, and everybody is different with their body fat percentage, your menstrual cycle might stop. Your body's just like, it's not safe for us, not good right now to, be having and growing a child. We just don't have enough energy. So again, you've got to be really careful with that. And, a lot of people in deficits just sort of find that their cognitive functions are not so good, because your brain needs a lot of fuel. And if you're not getting it, you're sort of forgetful, you're crabby, just not the best person to be around. And it's a very complex system. But just remember, CICO does hold true. Nobody breaks the law of thermodynamics, but it's just to find what is affecting you.
And I think the other thing is, women look at how lean men get and forget, as women, you're meant to have more fat stores. Your set point is different to a man's set point. And times change, but evolution hasn't. Men were out there fighting and killing and hunting, and women were, producing families. And that's kind of how the bodies are built. Obviously social evolution's changed, but actual physical evolution hasn't. So women still need the higher portion of fat. And I think, from my experience, there's a lot of women who are racing to lose fat, when in fact it is going to take longer for women to get to that point. And they should never be as lean as men, for health reasons. But to get to the level, it just takes longer, because there's a lot more things, more seesaws to balance on the way. So as I said, it's big longer steps on the staircase rather than jumping off cliffs.
There's been a study, I think it came out quite recently, about metabolism, and how everyone was like, after 30, your metabolism, your RMR, resting metabolic rate, declines. But now the study showed that it's only after 60 that it starts to significantly decline. And it's more to do with your lifestyle factors, because I've worked with a few women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're like, it's menopause, it's after you've hit a certain age, metabolism is just slow. And that study shows that yes, to a point it is, but it's more your lifestyle factors, maybe without you even realizing, that are affecting that energy balance equation, which is not just food. It's your stress, it's your recovery.
Well, the only thing I was going to say, I've got a 63-year-old client, and she does everything, and she kills it on the daily with her activity, and it's amazing. But the only thing that really affects her progress is, because of the menopause, sleep.
Oh yeah, and that's
one of those factors. It's sleep, but she's still killing it, and we're still moving along nicely. But that's the only thing, I talked to her about sleep, and the knock-on effect on digestion, making sure there's enough fiber in the diet, etc. So yeah, it's you know, it is all about the environment, and obviously then the other contributing factors. I would say sleep's one of those. It's really affected by menopause, but you know, generally everything else, you know, there's nothing stopping you being in fantastic shape in the 60s.
Not at all. And I mean, the more lean muscle mass you have, the better. Because lean muscle mass has, you know, it's an expensive tissue for your body. So you will increase your RMR by having more lean muscle mass. And that does decline with age. You know, from a protein episode, you need to keep, you know, actually eat more protein as you get older. So it's, yeah, it can definitely be complicated, but you know, all the fundamentals still hold true. But it's just to figure them out on a case-by-case basis. I think we have time to touch on diuretics. Andy, you wanted to talk?
Yeah, only because it's quite a hot topic at the moment in the sort of, especially bodybuilding world. Yeah, Elena, I can't remember her surname. I think she was, you know, European female bodybuilder. She died backstage at the Europa show.
Yeah, the NPC.
Europa show. And that's brought into light the bigger issue of diuretic usage in bodybuilding, but primarily in women's, and not just bodybuilding. We're talking bikini through bigger, you know, physique bodybuilding. You know, and the reality is, you know, a lot of people don't know what diuretics are. Like, as in, you know, there are natural diuretics. You know, diuretics, for those who don't know, is a you know, used to remove fluid from the body to make you wee more, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, now there's natural diuretics like caffeine, dandelion root extracts, and these, and we're not talking about these things. You know, asparagus, cucumber, and shit like that. But that's the natural ones. What we're talking about is the chemical compounds.
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical diuretics used, being used, and you know, there's the main ones like Diazide, Bumex, and what the issue isn't so much people dying of dehydration. That is an issue, probably has happened. It's actually, and I think that's what happened with Elena. It's probably dehydration. She died backstage for show, and one coach said 4 female athletes have died, and all linked diuretics, and others have got heart conditions and things. And the reality is, potassium, most diuretics potassium sparing. So they flush out water and sodium after, and this is where a lot of people get into trouble after shows, because what happened is, you know, you're having these potassium sparing diuretics. After the show, you then go eat mentally, and eat you can get burgers, fries, takeaway, whatever it may be, high potassium. That high potassium suddenly puts you hyperkalemic. And hyperkalemic is where you've got too much potassium in your body. And what people need to realize is potassium is important for heart function. So you create arrhythmic heart conditions, and people's hearts just stop and they die. So, yes, do people need diuretics to compete in bodybuilding shows? No. There's a lot of top bodybuilders don't take any diuretics. Yeah. I've never taken a diuretic, you know. I've had a bit of asparagus and cucumber and a bit of caffeine.
Same, man.
Look, reality is, but we're talking mainly, it seems to be women, way more. There's a guy who died at the Europa show in Spain, died in his hotel room, and made it to the show. And there's a real issue there. And if you're a female athlete and you've got a coach telling you you need to take diuretics to compete, don't listen to them. Yeah. You know, genuinely do your research. It's your own choices. Yeah, you gotta be grown up about it, but research. They're telling you, like, some of these protocols I was seeing was what's that acne medication? Aldactone. Take aldactone for 2 weeks before. which is a diuretic. Then you're taking, on top of that, they're also taking things like clenbuterol, T3, their thyroid, and that increases heart rates on both of those. Then they're taking aldactone, which is a diuretic. Then they're adding Bumex on top, which is a loop diuretic, which means it blocks like major channels, huge potassium sparing situation going on, and diazide, which is just an insane amount of compounds to be taking. And I'm not an expert at diuretics, and I'm not a doctor, but pretty straightforward. If you are ready for a show, you wouldn't need. That's just someone trying to put a band-aid over a crack. Yeah. We got to pull some water off. It'll be all right. We have to pull some water off. And it happens with men's and women's. Where look, you should be ready. No need for diuretics. If the only thing is, you can keep your water in up to the day of a show if you're lean enough.
Yeah.
The only people that struggle is people who aren't quite lean enough. Maybe have a couple more pounds to lose, and that's the reality. Yeah. So coaching, if a coach, and this is just saying, especially for female athletes, if a coach ever tells you to take a diuretic, you can say no. Don't do everything, and this goes across all coaching. You don't have to just follow coaches what they tell you. You can ask questions, and you should be questioning. Your coach should be able to give you the answers, and the reality is, a good coach will have the answers. A bad coach will just tell you to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the same with any principle across coaching. It's like, it's just energy balance. Just eat less. Just eat less, move more. Eat less, move more. All right, it's not working. Eat less, you're not doing it properly. These things. This just shows in full coaching.
Yeah, you should be able to answer why this exercise is there, why this. Every single thing you program for your client. If you're also as a coach, if you get angry when a client asks, maybe you're in the wrong profession. You should, you're not.
I'm always quite keen when a client says I looked at the exercise plan, I don't have that piece of equipment, or I don't like that exercise. I'll change it. It doesn't bother me. Because someone else did. I always say to them, it's about movement patterns. And it's about reps and tempo and everything else. But the actual exercise doesn't matter to me, particularly, whatever you want, you're happiest with.
And it's the same with
food. They're often like, oh, do I have to have whey protein?
Yeah. Nope.
I told you to have whey protein. But everyone thinks when we come on board that that's going to be one thing we've got to have. It's like, no.
Yeah, and usually I think it also gets clients you're not forcing me to have anything. You're like, no, this is the plan, this is how we go. And you get clients who, I guess from previous coaching where it's like you're having 250 grams of anything healthy or weird
chicken rice.
Yeah.
As we've mentioned this before, if I wouldn't eat it, I wouldn't expect a client to eat it.
No, and
I don't eat boiled chicken.
It's just all about understanding, like we always say, just understanding the basics, not just mastering them, but just understanding the basics of energy balance. It helps so much, and again, you as the coach, you don't need to get complicated into GABA and whatever CCK hormone, this and that. But if you can just, tell your client kind of, this is what we're doing and why in terms of your diet, we're working, this is why it's important to work on your sleep. This is why it's important to work on your stress. This is why digestion is so important, because that affects everything in your journey to whatever goal you want. Your body is holistic. You have that whole bio-psychosocial approach, and you've got to address every single aspect of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would say with competitive athletes, you should probably be learning a lot more.
Yeah.
For general population, people just ask questions on check-ins, be consistent with asking, because it is learning. I always tell my clients this. It's a learning process. I'm here to help you learn for the future. And, and that's across all levels, ask questions. But if you're going to be competitive, and competitive athlete, you should probably be doing a lot more research in your own time as well.
Yeah. And I hope a lot of Kenyan bodybuilders will listen to this, because
well, this is what I'm worried about. Kenyans just grabbing diuretics because you probably get them from the pharmacy.
It's a big issue, and even for my preps, it's guys who come and ask me, what diuretic do you use? And I'm like, asparagus and green beans. And they're like, huh? Like, what do you mean? I'm like, asparagus and green beans. And then the more but the more I talk to them, you realize even the females here, it's like you use the diuretic, and not in a bad way, but it's like you use the diuretic and you look like that, then you are not ready. If
100%.
Yeah.
If you're using a diuretic because you still are soft a couple of days before a show, you're not ready. And all that's going to happen is, look, and we take out the health bit, you're just going to flatten your muscle, and you're going to look like a bag of shit anyway. So what's the point? Diuretics will pull out water from everywhere in your body, your brain, your muscles, organs. It doesn't care. It's going to drag that stuff out. And then you got the potassium situation on top of that.
And like you said, there's no use using. I don't know. It's just always comparing with pro bodybuilders. You're using something you have no idea what it does, but just because your favorite IFBB pro talked about it,
I've never seen anyone in Kenya compete with a condition where there's needed to be a diuretic, as in like people are getting lean, but we're not talking shredded to the bone lean.
Yeah.
So you're like, there's probably still a little way to go with either growing the muscle to look like you're bigger and fuller and leaner, or just a little bit more conditions needed. In all these shows, you see, apart from maybe the odd one or two, most people lack the condition anyway. So don't mess with diuretics. Get your condition nailed.
Yeah.
Just get a good coach who actually knows what they're doing.
You're
not your mate who's not going to charge you and knows, nothing.
And you
don't just read the forums. Don't just read the forums online where there's some crazy guys out there. There's some crazy stuff.
Yeah. Getting ready in 6 weeks, and you think you can do the same.
Don't follow pros. Don't follow pro stacks.
Yeah.
And I think, I've never competed, but if you're going to compete, I would say you've got to take maybe even a 2-year plan, because you actually need some muscle to compete.
Oh yeah.
You do. And that can take a long time to build, like a good off season. So you start with your coach way before, not just 6 weeks before, be like, okay, I've got a competition in 6 weeks, which is what.
Especially women. Women think they can just jump on in bikini.
Oh.
After like a year of training. It's like, it does make a mockery of bikini. The fact that to compete, you do need some muscle. You need some full muscle.
Yeah.
And women, thinking, as I talked about this the other day, just because you got a big bum in the off season doesn't mean you're a wellness athlete.
Yeah.
Right. What happens when all the fat disappears?
Yeah.
There's nothing.
So you need a good building season. Then you need a decent prep. That'll depend how long it takes. Then you need the exit plan.
Yeah.
And this is all long-term thinking. So
I was telling Clea, I've had to be like, just tell guys no. Like, you're telling me prep 5 weeks, 4 weeks, and what am I supposed to do? Magic? And it's like, I'm learning your body in 2 days so
and then the thing is, there are people who take people on like that, and then they do some dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
Because they want it.
Very. And not just with bodybuilding prep, but like fat loss in general as well.
True.
Like I
True.
said it before, but like you need a time to build your calories up. Bring up that RMR, that resting metabolic rate, by building some muscle. Bringing your calories up. Then you have your fat loss phase. Then you have your reverse diet phase, and this is more than a 12-week transformation. So yeah, always looking long term and just thinking of it as your lifestyle is key, but understanding energy balance and digestion we thought is really important. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we will catch you next week.